The cantatas of Vivek are gospels written in the form of epic songs. They trace the evolution of Vivek from a foolish mortal into an enlightened divine. Vivek sought out experiences that tested him in every way possible, particularly in the defense and protection of his Dunma people, and through his long life, his humility, and his unconquerable spirit, he attained the wisdom of the 7 graces. The cantatas relate many stories of Vivek's experiments with challenge and risk, his failures and triumphs, his blessings of insight and good fortune, and his debt to his partners, Almalexia the lover and Sotha Sil the teacher. The poetry is simple and dramatic, lyric and personal, composed
Whatever
to
you're
be sung
looking
or
for,
recited.
I'm sure I don't know how to
The following is an
find
excerpt from Lord Vivek's Brooding Beneath Red Mountain. The gaunt ghost fires loom as subtle shrouds, smokes and shades on the biers of Red Mountain. Arches and spires line the rock halls, dimly lit by the spirits of the dead. The blood of broken hearths and houses runs in red rivers, blossoms in fountains. Girdled round within walls of wit's glass, the shattered hosts slumber in cradles of ash. But when shall they wake? What dark crucible may kindle their souls to light? How long beneath red-reeking clouds must flickering watchfires burn? How many lifetimes of labor and lament will it take to seal this restless tomb?
Die! You will suffer greatly! You moi!
What Khajiit do for you? What does the Imperial need?
Ask if you must.
Listen, Outlander. Even natives get confused in the cantons. What are you looking for?
This is Vivek, Pilgrim. It's big. Can't you find your way around the cantons? They're the Imperial tax collectors. They hunt smugglers and tax dodgers. Adiranir. Never heard of her. Nope. Absolutely certain. Never heard the name before.
I'm looking for a friend of mine, a female Khajiit named Adiranir. Do you know where I can find her? I'm looking for a friend of mine, a female Khajiit named Adiranir. Do you know where I can find her? Yes, her name is Adiranir and she is a Khajiit. Do you know where I can find her? What a disappointment. But thank you for your time. I was just heading back to the mainland myself anyway. And maybe I'll run into her there. You noticed? Yes, it's true.
If you're here for trouble, it's big. You'll get more than you bargain for.
What does the Imperial need? I heard something.
Leave me. Listen.
Spit it out or hit the road.
from the introduction. Led by the legendary prophet Veloth, the ancestors of the Dunmer, exiles from Altmer cultures in present-day Somerset Isle, came to the region of Morrowind. In earliest times, the Dunmer were harassed or dominated by Nord Sea raiders. When the scattered Dunmer tribes consolidated into the predecessors of the modern Great House clans, they threw out the Nord oppressors and successfully resisted further incursions. The ancient ancestor worship of the tribes was in time superseded by the monolithic tribunal temple theocracy, and the Dunmer grew into a great nation called Resdayn. Resdayn was the last of the provinces to submit to Tiber Septim. Like Black Marsh, it was never successfully invaded and was peacefully incorporated by treaty into the empire as the province of Morrowind.
Welcome,
Almost
my
4
child.
centuries
Do
after
you
the
seek
coming
to
of the
join the
Imperial
temple?
legions, Morrowind is still occupied by Imperial legions, with a figurehead Imperial king, though the Empire has reserved most functions of the traditional local government to the ruling councils of the 5 great houses on Vvardenfell district. In 3E414, Vvardenfell territory, previously a temple preserved under Imperial protection and Ordinator laws, was reorganized as an Imperial provincial district. Vvardenfell had been maintained as a preserve administrated by the temple since the Treaty of the Armistice, and except for a few great house settlements sanctioned by the temple, Vvardenfell was previously uninhabited and undeveloped. But when the centuries-old temple ban on trade and settlement of Vvardenfell was revoked by King of Morrowind, a flood of Imperial colonists and Great House Dunmer came to Vvardenfell, expanding old settlements and building new ones. The new district was divided into Redoran, Hlalu, Telvanni and Temple districts, each separately administered by local house councils or temple priesthoods, and all under the advice and consent of Duke Dren and the district council in Ebonheart. Local law became a mixture of house law and imperial law
No,
in house
I don't
districts,
think so.
jointly enforced by house guards and legion guards, with temple law and imperial law enforced in the temple district by ordinators. The temple was still recognized as the majority religion, but worship of the 9 divines was protected by the legions and encouraged by imperial cult missions. The temple district included the city of Vivec City, the fortress of Ghostgate, and all sacred and profane sites, including those blighted areas inside the Ghost Fence, and all unsettled and wilderness areas on Vvardenfell. In practice, this district included all parts of Vvardenfell not claimed for Redoran, Hlalu, or Telvanni districts. The temples stubbornly fought all development in their district and were largely successful. House Hlalu, in combination with imperial colonists, embarked on a vigorous campaign of settlement and development. In the decades after reorganization, Balmora and the Ascadian Isles regions have grown steadily. Caldera and Pelagiad are completely new settlements, and all legion forts were expanded to accommodate larger garrisons. House Telvanni, normally conservative and isolationist, has been surprisingly aggressive in expanding beyond their traditional tower villages. Disregarding the protests of the other houses, the temple, the duke, and the district council, Telvanni pioneers have been encroaching on the wild lands reserved to the temple.
Spit it out or hit
The
the road.
Telvanni Council officially disavows responsibility for these rogue Telvanni settlements, but it is an open secret that they are encouraged and supported by ambitious Telvanni mage lords. Under pressure from the temple, conservative House Redoran has steadfastly resisted expansion in their district. As a result, House Redoran and the temple are in danger of being politically and economically marginalized by the more aggressive and expansionist Hlalu and Telvanni interests. The imperial administration faces many challenges in the Vvardenfell district, but the most serious are the great house rivalries, animosity from the Ashlanders nomads, internal conflicts within the temple itself, and the Red Mountain Blight. Struggles between Great House, Temple and Imperial interests to control Vvardenfell's resource could at any time erupt into full-scale war. Ashlanders raid settlements, plunder caravans and kill foreigners on their wild lands. The Temple has unsuccessfully attempted to silence criticism and calls for reform within its ranks. But most serious are the plagues and diseased hosts produced by the blight storms sweeping out from Red Mountain. Vvardenfell and all Morrowind have long been menaced by the legendary evils of Dagoth-Ur and his ash vampire kin dwelling beneath Red Mountain. For centuries, the temple has contained this threat within the Ghost Fence, but recently the temple's resources and will have faltered, and the threat from Red Mountain has grown in scale and intensity. If the Ghost Fence should fail, and hosts of blighted monsters were to spill out across Vvardenfell's towns and villages, the Empire might have no choice but to evacuate Vvardenfell district and abandon it to disease and corruption.
Favor me with your question, Pilgrim. She works in the library. If she's not there, you might find her in her private quarters. Her door is across from the canon offices here in the Hall of Wisdom.
Oh, come on, leave me alone. Leave me.
Watch yourself. We'll have no trouble here. Three gods, one true faith.
As their name suggests, the Dark Brotherhood has a history shrouded in obfuscation. Their ways are secret to those who are not themselves brothers of the Order. Brother is a generic term. Some of their deadliest assassins are female, but they are often called brothers as well. How they continue to exist in shadow but be easily found by those desperate enough to pay for their services is not the least of the mysteries surrounding them. The Dark Brotherhood sprang from a religious order, the Morag Tong, during the Second Era. The Morag Tong were worshippers of the Daedra spirit Mephala, who encouraged them to commit ritual murders. In their early years, they were as disorganized as only obscure cultists could be, due to there being no one to lead the group. And as a group, they dared not murder anybody of any importance. This changed with the rise of the Night Mother. All leaders of the Morag Tong, and then afterward the Dark Brotherhood, have been called the Night Mother. Whether the same woman, if it is even a woman, has commanded the Dark Brotherhood since the Second Era is unknown. What is believed is that the original Night Mother developed an important doctrine of the Morag Tong, the belief that, while Mephala does grow stronger with every murder committed in her name, certain murders were better than others. Murders that came from hate pleased Mephala more than murders committed because of greed. Murders of great men and women pleased Mephala more than murders of relative unknown.
Keep moving.
We can approximate the time this belief was adopted with the first known murder committed by the Morag Tong. In the year 324 of the Second Era, the potentate Versidue was murdered in his palace in what is today the Elsewhere Kingdom of Sensual. In a brash move, the Night Mother announced the identity of the murderers by painting Morag Tong on the walls in the potentate's own blood. Previous to that, the Morag Tong existed in relative peace, more or less like a witch's coven, occasionally persecuted but usually ignored. In remarkable synchronicity, at a time when Tamriel the Arena was a fractured land, the Morag Tong was outlawed throughout the continent. Every sovereign gave the cult's elimination his highest priority. Nothing more was officially heard of them for 100 years. It is more difficult to date the era when the Morag Tong re-emerged as the Dark Brotherhood, especially as other guilds of assassins have sporadically appeared throughout the history of Tamriel. The first mention of the Dark Brotherhood that I have found is from the journals of the Blood Queen Mahera of Hegata. She spoke of slaying her enemies by her own hand, or if necessary, with the help of the Night Mother and her Dark Brotherhood, the secret arsenal my family has employed since my grandfather's time. Mahera wrote this in 2E412, so one can surmise that the Dark Brotherhood had been in existence since at least 360 if her grandfather had truly made use of them. The important distinction between the Dark Brotherhood and the Morag Tong was that the Brotherhood was a business as much as it was a cult. Rulers and wealthy merchants used the order as an assassin's guild. The Brotherhood gained the obvious rewards of a profitable enterprise, as well as the secondary benefit that rulers could no longer actively persecute them. They were needed. They were purveyors of an essential commodity. Even an extremely virtuous leader would be unwise to mistreat the Brotherhood. Not long after Mahera's journal entry came perhaps the most famous series of executions in the history of the Dark Brotherhood. The Colovian Emperor Potentate Severian Korak and every one of his heirs were murdered on one bloody night in Sun's Dawn in 430. Within a fortnight, the Colovian dynasty crumbled to the delight of its enemies. For over 400 years, until the advent of the warrior emperor Tiber Septim, chaos reigned over Tamriel. Though no comparably impressive executions have been recorded, the Brotherhood must have grown fat with gold during that interregnum. The Dark Brotherhood has no shortage of business opportunities, and accounting, I have been informed, is the Brotherhood's favorite euphemism for an execution. While they are officially considered an unlawful organization in every corner of the Empire, like the Thieves' Guild, they are almost as universally tolerated.
If you're here for trouble, you'll get more than you bargain for. We're watching you. Watch yourself. We'll have no trouble here. Do you want something?
Go ahead. I'm afraid I don't know anything about the 6th house, but I can tell you about the Nerevarine cult.
Go ahead. I'm afraid I don't know anything about a 6th house cult, but I can tell you about the Nerevarine cult. This book lists the disputes of the dissident priests with tribunal temple doctrines. The temple has outlawed the sale or possession of the book, so it will be hard to find. We have a copy here, but I fear I'm being watched by the ordinators here. A safer plan would be to search local booksellers. Some booksellers ignore temple bans on outlawed books for profits or for principles. The dissident priests dispute temple doctrine and are outlawed and persecuted by the temple. Ordinators arrest and imprison heretics, and the Empire cannot interfere. Progress of Truth lists their beliefs. In brief, they challenge the purity and divinity of the tribunal, suggesting their powers are sorcerous, not divine, and perhaps akin to the powers of Dagoth-Ur. They also condemn the arbitrary power of the Ordinators and accuse the temple hierarchy of self-interest and corruption. Grandmaster Beryl Salar is the chief ordinator on Vvardenfell. Give to the Emperor only your coin, and honor only the law which is just. The strongest of us live long after death, so that we may guide and protect our children and kinsmen. We speak of such strong spirits as heroes and wise women in our songs, sung so we may not forget their wisdoms and gifts. Each of the greater saints and lesser saints has his own proper sphere of influence. Those worshippers of various walks of life that the saint has the most sympathy and affection for. The greater saints of the temple, listed with their proper spheres, are Blessed Almalexia the Warden, healers, teachers, Lord Sothasil the Magus, artificers, wizards, Lord Vivek the Poet, artists, rogues, Saint Nerevar the Captain, warriors, statesmen, and Saint Veloth the Pilgrim, outcasts, seekers. Saint Felms the Bold is the patron of butchers and fishmongers. This cruel warlord killed many Nord infidels who deserved killing. He couldn't read or write, but received inspiration directly from the voice of Blessed Almalexia in his head. Saint Lothus the Pious is the patron of tailors and dyers, companion of the tribunals and greatest Alma ruler of the tribunal temple. He formulated the central rituals and principles of the new temple faith. Saint Lothus is the symbolic bridge between the gods and the faithful, and the Saint Maris the Peacemaker is the patron of farmers and laborers. As a girl, Saint Maris showed healing gifts and trained as a healer. She marched across battlefields with her followers dressed in white robes, healing warriors and wizards on both sides without discrimination. Great house troops adopted white robes as her standard and disobeyed orders to fight. Saint Roris the Martyr is the patron of furnishers and caravanners. Captured by Argonians before the Arnesian War, Roris refused to renounce the tribunal faith and was tortured and martyred. Vengeance for the Saint Roris was a rallying cry of the Arnesian War. Saint Delin the Wise is the patron of potters and glassmakers. Saint Delin was head of House Indoril, a skilled lawyer, and author of many tomes on tribunal law and custom. Saint Ohms the Just is the patron of chandlers and clerks. Founder of the Ordinators, Saint Ohms conceived and articulated the inquisitorial principles of testing, ordeal, and forced repentance. Soul sickness is called madness or insanity in the Empire. Signs of soul sickness are strange dreams, uncontrollable impulses, and cruel and evil deeds. Madness is not a disease, as Westerners believe, for if it were, it might be cured by blessings and healers. Soul sickness is a curse of Dagoth-Ur, who sends dark dreams to attack the weak of faith in their sleep. Those strong in faith can resist. Those weak in faith must seek counsel from the temple. Caius is a dear friend. Like me, he admires the best traditions of the temple: charity for the poor, education for the ignorant, protection for the weak. He is a Westerner, but he has come to love our land and our people. But like me, he distrusts the arbitrary power of the Ordinators, and like the dissident priests, he suspects the temple is hiding something. He serves the Emperor, but he also loves Morrowind, and he sees the failing virtues of the temple as a threat to Morrowind's political stability. The Ashlanders have a mystical tradition of interpreting dreams and visions as prophecies. These prophecies are recorded in verse and may be lost or garbled over the generations. But the dissident priests have collected many ancient prophecies of the Nerevarine, many of which they believe to be genuine. Collectively, these are called the lost prophecies of the Incarnate. One of the sacred missions of the dissident priests is the collection and study of these prophecies. As I said, the dissident priests have a book called Progress of Truth, which gives their views on the beliefs of the Nerevarine cult. Not with you, no.
Keep moving. Let's not make this official, Outlander. Move along.
Favor me with your question, Pilgrim. Do you need me to point out some specific place? Vivec has 8 cantons. On a map, it looks like a cross, with the Silt Striders from North Landing, north of the Foreign Quarter, go to Seda Neen, Suran, Molag Mar, and Balmora. Guild guides at the Foreign Quarter Mages Guild teleport you to the Balmora, Aldrun, Caldera, and Sadrith Mora Mages Guilds for a fee.
We who know the old ways are well aware of the existence of a spiritual world invisible to the unenlightened. Just as one living in a kingdom but unaware of the political machinations underneath may see a new tax or battle preparation as the caprices of fortune, many observe floods, famines, and madness with helpless incomprehension. This is deplorable. As the great Quilian Danizan moaned, the power of ignorance can shatter ebony like glass. What, after all, is the origin of these spiritual forces that move the invisible strings of Mundus? Any neophyte of Artium knows that these spirits are our ancestors,
I'm
and
Darcy
that
Adrian,
while
Bond.
living, they
What is
too
your
were
destination?
bewildered by the spirits
I
of
can
their
also help with
ancestors,
locally.
and so on, back to the original Acharii. The Daedra and gods to whom the common people turn are no more than the spirits of superior men and women whose power and passion granted them great influence in the afterworld. Certainly this is our truth and our religion, but how does it help us in our sacred duty of Selifansai, or providing grave and faithful counsel to lesser men? Primarily, it is easy to grasp the necessity both of endowing good men with great power and making powerful men good. We recognize the multiple threats that a strong tyrant represents, breeds cruelty, which feeds the Daedra Boethia, and hatred, which feeds the Daedra Vermina. If he should die having performed a particularly malevolent act, he may go to rule in oblivion. And worst of all, he inspires other villains to thirst after power and other
Leave
rulers
me.
to embrace villainy. Knowing this, we have developed patience in our dealings with such
Where is
despots.
Merlin?
They should be
Late
crippled, humiliated, impoverished, imprisoned. Other councillors may advocate assassination or warfare, which, aside from its spiritual insignificance, is expensive and likely to inflict at least as much pain on the innocents as the brutish dictator. No, we are intelligence gatherers, dignified diplomats, not revolutionaries. How, then, are our councillors faithful?
I'm sure
We are
there's someone
faithful
else you can
only
bother.
to the old ways. It is essential always to remember the spiritual world while keeping our eyes open in the physical one. Performing the rites of Moawita on the 2nd of Hearthfire and the Vigild on the 1st of Second Seed are essential means of empowering salutary spirits and debilitating unclean ones. How then are we at once faithful to those we counsel and to the Isle of Artaeum? Perhaps the sage Taheritai said it best.
Come on, leave
In
me
Mundus,
alone.
conflict and disparity are what bring change. And change is the most sacred of the 11 forces.
What more can Jobasha
change
say?
is the force without
Jobasha
focus
knows a
or
little
origin.
about everything.
It is the duty
so
of the disciplined Sijic,
and maybe
enlightened
Jobasha
one,
will talk.
to dilute change where it brings greed, gluttony, sloth, ignorance, prejudice, cruelty. Here Taherite lists the rest of the 111 prodigalities, and to encourage change where it brings excellence, beauty, happiness, and enlightenment. As such, the faithful council has but one master, his mind. If the man the Sijic counsels acts wickedly and brings Hignitha, bad change, and will otherwise not be counselled, it is the Sijic's duty to counterbalance the Ignitha by any means necessary, emphasis mine. A student of the old ways may indeed ally himself to a lord, but it is a risky relationship. It cannot be stressed enough that the choice be wisely made. Should the lord refuse wise counsel and order the Sijic, to use Taheritai's outmoded word, to perform an act contrary to the teachings of the old ways, there are few available options. The Sijic may obey, albeit unwillingly, and fall prey to the dark forces against which he has devoted his life. The Sijic may abandon his lord, which will bring shame on him and the Isle of Artaeum, and so may never be allowed home again. Or the Sijic may simply kill himself.
I simply wish to go to my friend's bookstore, but these troublesome fools are trying to threaten me. I welcome you as the friend of my friend, but I wish to go to my friend's bookstore. My friend, Jobasha the Khajiit, has a bookstore, Jobasha's Rare Books. The sight of a free Argonian offends these racist thugs. It would tarnish my Morag Tong honor to slay them, and I don't want to trouble my friend Saralis Golmis by fighting in his club. But I must go to my friend's bookstore, where we can talk in peace. If you have a way with words, perhaps you can talk to them. Or if you have a way with money, they might be bought. Otherwise, I fear there must be bloodshed. Jobasha is a friend of mine, a Khajiit. He owns Jobasha's Rare Books, which Jobasha's Rare Books is a bookshop with a wide selection of rare and obscure books. My friend Jobasha, a Khajiit, is the owner. The shop is here in Vivek's foreign quarter, in the lower wasteworks. I am in the service of the Morag Tong, a modest thrall in rank, and by vocation and training, an agent and executioner. In my private life, I am a student of history. There is little else to tell.
Am I talking to you, Fetcher?
Get out of our way. Get out of our way, Enwa. We got issues with this filthy lizard here.
So push on.
His kind aren't welcome here. He belongs in the swamp with the rest of them.
That rat's in the bag.
Well, if you insist, I guess I must hear you out. Shut up and butt out, Outlander. It's the filthy lizard we're talking to, not you. This rotting piece of trash ought to be chained up somewhere, not running around loose. Am I talking to you, Fetcher? No, I am talking to the filthy lizard, so push off. What? Are you some kind of filthy lizard lover?
The happy hour.
You want to give your little friend a big kiss? I hear you. Can we work this out? What? Are you some kind of filthy lizard lover? I don't want any trouble. Just take it easy. Blah, blah, blah. He can stay here forever for all I care. Not my problem.
Are we ready to travel together to Jobasha's rare books? When we arrive at my friend's bookstore, I will answer your questions there. Thank you. I will follow you to Jobasha's rare books, and we will speak further there.
Hello, my friend. What a glorious time it is. Perhaps I can interest you in one of my fine wares. All magical, all for a low, low price.
Watch yourself. We'll have no trouble here.
Where are you going?
Oh, no weakness or fault.
Yes, thank you very much. We should be free from distraction here. Now, I said I'd tell you about the Nerevarine cult so you can report back to Caius. And I don't know of any Sixth House cult, but I can tell you what I do know. To understand the Nerevarine cult, you must understand the history of the Ashlanders. Nerevar means something very different to the Ashlanders from what he means to Dunmer of the Great Houses. You should also know about the persecution of the Nerevarine and the legacy of the false incarnate, for the Nerevarine cult is at the heart of the ancient conflict between the nomadic Ashlanders and the settled Great House Dunmer. Here is a summary for Caius, but ask your questions and I'll answer in detail. In the First Era, the nomadic Ashlanders and the settled Dunmer clans were much alike. But after the First Council and the formation of the Great Houses, Ashlanders have been steadily forced into the poorest and most hostile lands. Now the nomadic tribes look to the prophesied return of Nerevar for a restoration of their ancient rites and religious traditions. The Ashlanders hate the House Dunmer, who have become soft and who have abandoned traditional ancestor worship for the gods of the tribunal. And the Ashlanders hate Outlanders, who invaded and stole their land and forced them to live as a subject people. A reborn Nerevar who could drive out the Outlander invaders, destroy the false worship of the tribunal, and restore the pure traditional life and faith of the nomads would be a very popular hero to the Ashlanders. I gave you a summary for Caius. Feel free to read it, of course. In the past, some have claimed to be the reincarnated Nerevar. The most recent is known as Peakstar, a figure of legend among the Wastes tribes for the last 30 years. The temple says these false incarnates disprove the prophecies, since the false incarnates fail and come to nothing, but the mystical Nerevarine cult glorifies rather than shrinks from contradictions, citing the appearance of failed incarnates as certain proof of Nerevar's coming rebirth. So clumsy, all my fault. I've never heard of such a thing. House Dagoth was the 6th house, but in the War of the First Council, they betrayed the other great houses and were destroyed for their treason. But I've never heard of anyone worshipping them. Dagoth the ancient head of House Dagoth, is the devil of the tribunal faith, but I've never heard of anyone worshipping him either. Their hatred saddens and angers me. I hate the custom of despising another on account of his race, and I cannot forgive the narrowness of mind and poverty of spirit that assures them of their right to abuse and attack me for spite or on a whim. Perhaps someday, yes. For example, I would greatly wish to see the Ashlands and their peoples with my own eyes. But at present, my duties to the Morag Tong do not permit me to travel.
Excerpt concerning the points of temple doctrine challenged by the dissident priests. 1. The divinity of the tribunal. Temple doctrine claims their apotheosis was miraculously achieved through questing, virtue, knowledge, testing, and battling with evil. Temple doctrine claims their divine powers and immortality are ultimately conferred as a communal judgment by the Dunmer ancestors, including, among others, the good Daedra, the prophet Veloth, and St. Nerevar. Dissident priests ask whether Dagoth-Ur's powers and the tribunal powers might ultimately derive from the same source, Red Mountain. Sources in the Apocrypha suggest that the tribunal relied on profanely enchanted tools to achieve godhead, and that those unholy devices were the ones originally created by the ungodly Dwemer sorcerer Kagranak to create the false construct Numidium. 2. The purity of the tribunal. The dissident priests say that the temple has always maintained a public face, represented by the hieroglypher, the priestly writings, and a hidden face, represented by the apocrypha, the hidden writings. The public account portrays the actions of the tribunal in a heroic light, while the hidden writings reveal secrets, untruths, inconsistencies, conflicting accounts, and varying interpretations which hint at darker and less heroic motives and actions of the tribunes. In particular, conflicting accounts of the battle at Red Mountain raise questions about the tribunal's conduct and about the source of their subsequent apotheosis. Also, there is good evidence that the tribunal have been concealing the true nature of the threat posed by Dagoth-Ur at Red Mountain, misleading the people about the tribunal's ability to protect Morrowind from Dagoth-Ur, and concealing a recent dramatic diminishing of the tribunal's magical powers. 3. Temple accounts of the Battle of Red Mountain. Ashlander tradition does not place the tribunal at Red Mountain and holds that the Dwemer destroyed themselves rather than that Nerevar destroyed them. Ashlander tradition further holds that Nerevar left Dagoth-Ur guarding the profane secrets of Red Mountain while Nerevar went to confer with the Grand Council, that is, the tribunal, that Nerevar died at the conference, not of his wounds, according to the Ashlanders, but from treachery, and that subsequently the tribunal confronted a defiant Dagoth-Ur within Red Mountain, then drove Dagoth-Ur beneath Red Mountain when he would not yield to their will. 4. Veneration of the Daedra, saints and ancestors. While challenging the divinity of the tribunal, the dissidents do not challenge the sainthood or heroism of the tribunal. In fact, the dissident priests advocate restoring many of the elements of fundamentalist ancestor worship as practiced by the Ashlanders and by St. Veloth. Exactly how this would work is debated inconclusively within the dissident priests. 5. Denial of the prophecies of the incarnate and persecution of the Nerevarines. Though no consensus exists among the dissidents about whether the Nerevarine prophecies are genuine, all agree that the persecution of the Nerevarines is unjust and politically motivated. The dissident priests do not reject mysticism, revelation, or prophecy as part of the religious experience. The dissidents have not resolved the issue of true or false insights. They have studied the mysticism of the Ashlander ancestor cults, in particular the rites of the Ashlander seers and wise women and the prophecies of the incarnate. Many among the dissident priests have come to believe that the Nerevarine prophecies are genuine and have made a systematic study of prophecies recorded in temple archives. 6. Authority of the Archcanon and the Ordinators. The dissident priests reject the authority of the Archcanon and the Ordinators. The temple hierarchy has been corrupted by self-interest and politics and no longer acts in the best interests of the temple or its worshippers. The dissident priests believe the Archcanon and Ordinators speak for themselves, not for the tribunal. 7. The Inquisition and the use of terror and torture by the Ordinators. Within the temple hierarchy, it is an open secret that the Ordinators rely on abduction, terror, torture, and secret imprisonment to discourage heresy and dissent. The dissident priests feel the Ordinators are either out of control or tools used to maintain a corrupt priesthood in power. 8. Fundamentals of temple doctrine: charity for the poor, education for the ignorant, protection for the weak. Though the dissident priests acknowledge that most rank-and-file priests honor the best traditions of the temple, they believe that many priests in higher ranks are interested more in love of authority and luxury than in the welfare of the poor, weak, and ignorant.
Are you here to discuss your orders, or is there something else you want? I'm not ready for you yet, I told you. Go out and brush up your skills or do some freelance work to support your cover story, or go shopping, or do some sightseeing. Just leave me alone and let me think.
Say what you want or go away.
I am a sleeper, one among thousands. I bring you a message. Dagoth calls you, and you cannot deny your lord. The sixth house is risen, and Dagoth is its glory. Beneath Red Mountain, Lord Dagoth sleeps. But when he wakes, we all shall rise, and the dust will blow away. Serve your lord, Dagoth-ur. The sixth house is risen, and Dagoth is its glory.
on him.
That is quite enough. He's over here!
You here for orders or advancement? Or I need someone to return a codebook that belongs to our client. The codebook our client wants is in the hands of Sotilda at the South Wall in Balmora. Find that codebook and bring it back to me. She's Thieves Guild. I take full responsibility. And listen, I'm Guild Steward. When I say jump, you ask, how high? Keep that in mind, and we won't have any problems. Hail! Have you recovered that codebook yet? I've been waiting too long for it. What say you? Sure, go ahead.
She'll steal 1,000 jewels. She'll even play the fool. Say you love her. Say you love her. Well, your father will never give his blessing.
Welcome. What may I do for you?
Good to see you again. Please, whenever you're in Balmora, feel free to stop by. Now, what can I do for you? Look, I'll tell you what's going on. This codebook has dirt on the Kimona Tong and the Skooma trade. As soon as we get it figured out, we take it to the authorities and take over the trade ourselves. The Fighters Guild works for the Kimona Tong since Joring Hardheart took over. You have to decide where your loyalties lie.
Sing it to you all day long. Will you love her? Will you love her? She'll steal 1,000 jewels. She'll
Greetings. Let's do business.
If you're here for small talk, move along.
You. Need I call the guards? You Inwa. You Inwa.
Die, Victor!
After the conquest of Hammerfell, Imperial legions massed along the northeastern borders of Cyrodiil, and invasion fleets prepared in Skyrim. Initially, though the Imperial legions and navy were widely considered undefeatable, House Indoril and the Temple hierarchy proposed to resist to the death. Redoran and Dres stood by Indoril, with Telvanni remaining neutral. Hlalu proposed accommodation. Contrived border incidents in Black Marsh ended inconclusively, but the swampy terrain did not favor legion and navy coordination. Against the legions massed west of Silgrad Tower and Kragenmoor, and the legions west of Blacklight and Cormoris View, Morrowind had pitifully small militias stiffened by small companies of Redoran mercenaries and elite units of house nobles and temple ordinators and armigers. Further complicating matters was the refusal of Indoril, Dres, Hlalu and Telvanni to garrison the western borders. Indoril and Dres proposed, rather than defend the western border, instead to withdraw to the interior and fight a guerrilla war. With Hlalu advocating accommodation and Telvanni remaining neutral, Redoran therefore faced the prospect of standing alone against the Empire. The situation changed radically when Vivek appeared in person in Vivek City to announce his negotiation of a treaty with Emperor Tiber Septim, reorganizing Morrowind as a province of the Empire, but guaranteeing all rights of faith and self-government. A shocked temple hierarchy, which apparently had not been consulted, greeted the announcement with awkward silence. Indoril swore they would resist to the death with the loyal support of Dres, while Redoran, grateful for a graceful excuse to avoid facing the legions unsupported, joined with Hlalu in welcoming the agreement. Telvanni, seeing which way the wind blew, joined with Hlalu and Redoran in supporting the treaty. Nothing is known of the circumstances of the personal meeting between Septim and Vivek, or where it took place, or the preliminaries which must have preceded the treaty. The public reason was to protect the identities of the agents involved. In the West, speculation has centered around the role of Zurin Arctus in brokering the agreement. In the East, rumors suggest that Vivek offered Numidium to aid in the conquest of the Altmer and Somerset Isle in return for significant concessions to preserve self-rule, house traditions, and religious practices in Morrowind. The Lord High Counselor of the Grand Council, an Indoril, refused to accept the treaty and refused to step down. He was assassinated and replaced by a Hlalu. House Hlalu took the opportunity to settle some old scores with House Indoril, and a number of local councils changed hands in bloody coups. More blood was shed in these inter-house struggles than against the Imperial legions during Morrowind's transition from an independent nation to a province of the Empire. The generals of the legions had dreaded an invasion of Morrowind. The Dunmer were widely regarded as the most dreadful and fanatic foes, further inspired by their temple and clan traditions. The generals had not grasped the political weaknesses of Morrowind, which Emperor Tiber Septim recognized and exploited. At the same time, given the tragic depopulation and destruction experienced by the other provinces conquered by Septim, and the swift and efficient assimilation of Morrowind into the imperial legal systems and economy, with relatively small impact on lower or upper classes of Morrowind's citizens, the tribunal also deserves some credit for recognizing the hopelessness of Morrowind's defense and the chance of gaining important concessions at the treaty table by being the first to offer peace. By contrast, many Indoril nobles chose to commit suicide rather than submit to the Empire, with the result that the house was significantly weakened during the period of transition, guaranteeing that they would lose much of their influence and power to House Hlalu, whose influence and power was waxing with its enthusiastic accommodation with the Empire. The temple hierarchy more skillfully managed their loss of face, remaining aloof from political struggles and earning the goodwill of the people by concentrating on their economic, educational, and spiritual welfare. How you should know us. Death, defeat, and fear. We do not die. We do not fear death. Destroy the body, and the animus is cast into the darkness. But the animus returns. But we are not all brave. We feel pain and fear it. We feel shame and fear it. We feel loss and fear it. We hate the darkness and fear it. The scamps have small thoughts and cannot fear greatly. The vermi have no thoughts and cannot fear. The Dremora have deep thoughts and must master fear to overcome it. The clan bond. We are not born. We have not fathers nor mothers, yet we have kin and clans. The clan form is strong. It shapes body and thought. In the clan form is strength and purpose, the oath bond. We serve by choice. We serve the strong so that their strength might shield us. Clans serve by long practice, but practice may change. Dremora have long served Dagon, but not always so. Practice is secure when oath bonds are secure and trust is shared. When oath bonds are weak, there is pain and shame and loss and darkness and great fear. How we think about man. Perhaps you find scamps comic and vermi brutish. How then do you imagine we view you humans? You are the prey, and we are the huntsmen. The scamps are the hounds, and the vermi the beaters. Your flesh is sweet, and the chase is diverting, as you may sometimes praise the fox or hare, admiring its cunning and speed, and lamenting as the hounds tear its flesh. So do we sometimes admire our prey, and secretly applaud when it cheats our snares or eludes pursuit. But like all worldly things, you will in time wear and be used up. You age, grow ugly, weak and foolish. You are always lost, late or soon. Sometimes the prey turns upon us and bites. It is a small thing. When wounded or weary, we fly away to restore. Sometimes a precious thing is lost, but that risk makes the chase all the sweeter. Man's mystery. Man is mortal and doomed to death and failure and loss. This lies beyond our comprehension. Why do you not despair?
Khajiit will make special deal, yes. Sweet skooma.
Don't stand about. Get moving.
See something you like.
Have you been helping Ajira with the bet? Go ahead. I have many tricks of my own. Even you and Ajira together can't stop me from winning.
Can we hurry this along?
Have you been helping Ajira with the bet? Go ahead.
Can I help you?
A visitor, and an outlander too. What brings you to Nerano Manor?
That is quite enough.
A visitor, and an outlander too. What brings you to Nerano Manor?
There he is.
A visitor, and an outlander too.
Watch out, man. Watch out.
Blessed we are.
Are you here to discuss your orders, or is there something else you want? Are you here to discuss your orders, or is there some... Are you here to discuss your orders, or are you here to discuss your orders, or is there something else? Are you here to discuss your orders, or is there something else you want? Are you here to discuss your orders, or is there something else you want? We need an Ashlander informant. I have heard of a fellow in Aldrun named Hasur Zainsubani, an Ashlander who left the Wastes to become a wealthy trader. They say the Ashlanders like to give and receive presents. Take these 100 drakes. Find out what Zainsubani likes, and get him a gift. Then give him the gift and see if he will tell you about the Ashlanders and the Nerevarine cult. Then report back to me. Hasur Zainsubani is an Ashlander who left the Wastes to become a wealthy trader in Aldrun. I'm not sure where to find him, but I'd try the Aldskar Inn in Aldrun first. That's a more respectable place than the Rat in the Pot or the Council Club. To reach Aldrun from Balmora on foot, take the road north from Balmora to Caldera. Exit Caldera through the northwest gate. Though Aldrun is nearly due north as the racer flies, the road swings far to the west to avoid the ash wastes, curving around at last to the east, even southeast, before approaching Aldrun. It is a long trip through desolate lands and easy to get lost if you leave the road. Alternatively, pay for passage on a silt strider.
You talk too much, Outlander. Move along. Why walk when you can ride? Scramfla. My friend.
Come, Outlander. Let us do business. What makes this smell? What?
I was young when the Duchess of Woda hired me as an assistant footman at her summer palace. My experience with the ways of the titled aristocracy was very limited before that day. There were wealthy merchants, traders, diplomats, and officials who had large operations in Eldenroot and ostentatious palaces for entertaining, But my relatives were all far from
I'm
those
Angoth the
social
jeweler.
circles.
It's a real pleasure to
There was
make your
no family
acquaintance.
business for me to enter when I reached adulthood.
You
But
talk
my
too
cousin
much
heard
out
that
that
an
way.
estate far from the city required servants. It was so remotely located that there were unlikely to be many applicants for the positions. I walked for 5 days into the jungles of Valenwood before I met a group of riders going my direction. They were 3 Bosmer men, 1 Bosmer woman, 2 Breton women, and a Dunmer man, adventurers from the
No,
look of
I
them.
don't think so.
Are you also going to Maliva? Asked Prolissa, one of the Breton women, after we had made our introductions. I don't know what that is, I replied. I'm seeking a domestic position with the Duchess of Woda. We'll take you to her gate, said the Dunmer Missun Akin, pulling me up to his horse. But you would be wise not to tell her grace that students from Maliva escorted you, not unless you don't really want the position in her service. Akin explained himself as we rode on. Maliva was the closest village to the Duchess's estate, where a great and renowned archer had retired after a long life of military service. His name was Hiomaster, and though he was retired, he had begun to accept students who wished to learn the art of the bow. In time, when word spread of the great teacher, more and more students arrived to learn from the master. The Breton women had come down all the way from the western reach of High Rock. Akin himself had journeyed across the continent from his home near the great volcano in Morrowind. He showed me the ebony arrows he had brought from his homeland. I had never seen anything so black. From what we've heard, said Kapale, one of the Bosmer men, the Duchess is an imperial whose family has been here even before the empire was formed, so you might think that she was accustomed to the common people of Valenwood. Nothing could be further from the truth. She despises the village, and the school most of all. I suppose she wants to control all the traffic in her jungle, laughed Prolissa. I accepted the information with gratitude and found myself dreading more and more my first meeting with the intolerant Duchess. My first sight of the palace through the trees did nothing to assuage my fears. It was nothing like any building I had ever seen in Valenwood. A vast edifice of stone and iron, with a jagged row of battlements like the jaws of a great beast. Most of the trees near the palace had been hewn away long ago. I could only imagine the scandal that must have caused, and what fear the Bosmer peasants must have had of the Duchy of Woda to have allowed it. In their stead was a wide grey-green moat circling in a ring around the palace, so it seemed to be on a perfect, if artificial, island. I had seen such sights in tapestries from High Rock and the Imperial Province, but never in my homeland. There'll be a guard at the gate, so we'll leave you here, said Akin, stopping his horse in the road. It'd be best for you if you weren't damned by association with us. I thanked my companions and wished them good luck with their schooling. They rode on, and I followed on foot. In a few minutes' time, I was at the front gate, which I noticed was linked to tall and ornate railings to keep the compound secure. When the gatekeeper understood that I was there to inquire about a domestic position, he allowed me past and signalled to another guard across the open lawn to extend the drawbridge and allow me to cross the moat. There was one last security measure, the front door, an iron monstrosity with the Woda coat of arms across the top, reinforced by more strips of iron and a single golden keyhole. The man standing guard unlocked the door and gave me passage into the huge, gloomy, grey stone palace. Her Grace greeted me in her drawing room. She was thin and wrinkled like a reptile, cloaked in a simple red gown. It was obviously that she never smiled. Our interview consisted of a single question. Do you know anything about being a junior footman in the employment of an imperial noblewoman? Her voice was like ancient leather. No, Your Grace. Good. No servant ever understands what needs to be done, and I particularly dislike those who think they do. You're engaged. Life at the palace was joyless, but the position of junior footman was very undemanding. I had nothing to do on most days except to stay out of the Duchess's sight. At such times, I usually walked 2 miles down the road to Maliva. In some ways, there was nothing special or unusual about the village. There are thousands of identical places in Valenwood. But on the hillside nearby was Master Hiomaster's archery academy, and I would often take my luncheon and watch the practice. Prolissa and Akin would sometimes meet me afterwards. With Akin, the subjects of conversation very seldom strayed far from archery. Though I was very fond of him, I found Prolissa a more enchanting companion, not only because she was pretty for a Breton, but also because she seemed to have interests outside the realm of marksmanship. There's a circus in High Rock I saw when I was a little girl called the Quill Circus, she said, during one of our walks through the woods.
I do not wish to be rude.
They've been around for as long as anyone can remember. You have to see them if you ever can. They have plays and sideshows and the most amazing acrobats and archers you've ever seen. That's my dream, to join them someday when I'm good enough. How will you know when you're a good enough archer? I asked. She didn't answer, and when I turned, I realized that she had disappeared. I looked around, bewildered, until I heard laughter from the tree above me. She was perched on a branch, grinning. I may not join as an archer, maybe I'll join as an acrobat, she said, or maybe as both. I figured that Valenwood would be the place to go to see what I could learn. You've got all those great teachers to imitate in the trees here,
Outlander.
those 8 men. She coiled up, bracing her left leg before springing forward on her right. In a second, she had leapt across to a neighboring branch. I found it difficult to keep talking to her. "The Imga, you mean?" I stammered. "Aren't you nervous up at that height?" "It's a cliché, I know," she said, jumping to an even higher branch. "But the secret is not to ever look down. Would you mind coming down?" "I probably should anyhow," she said. She was a good 30 feet up now, balancing herself, arms outstretched, on a very narrow branch. She gestured toward the gate, just barely visible on the other side of the road. "This tree is actually as close as I want to get to your Duchess's palace." I held back a gasp as she dove off the branch, somersaulting until she landed on the ground, knees slightly bent. That was the trick, she explained, anticipating the blow before it happened. I expressed to her my confidence that she would be a great attraction at the Quill Circus. Of course, I know now that never was to be. On that day, as I recall, I had to return early. It was one of the rare occasions when I had work of a sort to do. Whenever the Duchess had guests, I was to be at the palace. That is not to say that I had any particular duties, except to be seen standing at attention in the dining room. The stewards and maids worked hard to bring in the food and clear the plates afterwards, but the footmen were purely decorative, a formality. But at least I was an audience for the drama to come.
I am Hasur Zain Subani. May you bless and be blessed.
I am Hasur Zain Subani. May you bless and be blessed. I do not wish to be rude, but if you have business, speak it, for I am at leisure, and would prefer to be alone with my thoughts. Yes, what is your business with me? I hope you won't think me rude, but I rather not spend my leisure time lecturing strangers. A curious question. A gift is a sign of courtesy among strangers and affection among friends. Among strangers, a thoughtful gift is a sign that you are cautious and considerate and aware of the other's wants and needs. Such is particularly useful for traders and travelers. Among friends, it is a private thing and subtle, with great risks, for the test of the gift is how well it is tailored to the receiver. Ashlanders may challenge a stranger who enters a yurt without invitation. Customs differ with different tribes, but leave when requested, and you may be forgiven. Be particularly careful about Ashkhans, tribal chiefs, and wise women, tribal seers and counselors. Some are welcoming, some are hostile. Be courteous and leave if requested. If offended, they may attack. There is too much to tell. Here, take these notes. I've written here what you should know about the Ashlanders and the Nerevarine cult. But most of all, if you are visiting a camp, there are things you should know about courtesy and challenges among the Ashlanders. And since you ask about the Nerevarine cult, perhaps you'll be interested in my views on the Ashlanders and foreigners. because a guiding passion of the Nerevarine cult is their hatred of foreigners. Most Ashlanders wish all foreigners and their false gods could be driven from Morrowind. At very least, Ashlanders wish the foreign devils would leave them in peace. Ashlanders think it shameful to attack unarmed persons, but they will kill without hesitation an armed person who offends them or their clan laws. No Ashlander is fool enough to make war against the Empire. However, if such a war might be won, many Ashlanders might cheerfully give their lives to win such a war. All Ashlanders in a tribe, young and small, are born into the ancestor cult of their clan. The Nerevarine cult is different, though. It is a very small cult, with only a few wise women with the gift of prophecy, and a few holy warrior heroes who guard and protect the seers. Sulmatul, Ashkhan of the Urshilaku, is the warrior protector of the cult, and Nibani Maisa, also of the Urshilaku, is the oracle seer of the cult. The Urshilaku are the Ashlanders of the northern Ashlands and the West Gash in the northwest of Vvardenfell. Ashkhan Sulmatul is their chief, a brave and respected war leader, and warrior protector of the Nerevarine cult. The Urshilaku Camp moves with the herds, but usually lies close to the Sea of Ghosts. The Urshilaku Camp moves with the herds, but usually lies close to the Sea of Ghosts, north of the village of Margan, on the northern coast of Vvardenfell. Perhaps it means nothing. It is peculiar, the tall figure in the golden mask. It puts me in mind of the golden helm of the Ordinator, but that does not seem to fit the spirit of the dream. My people take careful account of dreams, but only a wise woman can tease from them their meanings. When challenged for sport, it is acceptable to decline. When challenged for honor, it is shameful to decline. Honor challenges come from offense given in speech or action, or may represent customary formal challenges of status or ritual. I wonder at my son. He has been so long away without a word to his father. Surely he wishes me to die of worry, so he may inherit this fine brandy. He has proposed to chart the rarely visited ancient underground complex at Mamea, west of Red Mountain. If you should chance to see him in your travels, chide him and tell him an old man longs for news of his son and heir. I am a retired trader. I am well-traveled and a man of letters, but I am proud of my Ashlander birth and heritage.
And what about Teresa's son, a brave and handsome boy? If you're at him up,
Are you here to discuss your orders, or is there something else you want? Thanks for your report, but keep Zainsubani's notes on the Ashlanders. You'll need them. I'm promoting you and sending you to the Urshilaku Camp to speak with Sulmatul and Nibani Maisa. But before you go, I think it may be time to tell you what's going on. The Emperor and his advisors think you have the appearance of meeting the conditions of the Nerevarine Prophecies. That's why you were pulled out of prison on His Majesty's authority and sent to me. So you could satisfy the conditions of the Nerevarine Prophecies and become the Nerevarine. Here, this is a decoded copy of the coded package you gave me when you arrived. Read it later. It should explain everything. As you'll see in the decoded message, the Emperor and his counselors say you have the appearance of satisfying the conditions of the prophecy. Do you really satisfy the prophecy? Are you really the prophesied Nerevarine? At first I thought we were just supposed to create a persuasive impostor. Now, I don't know what to think. But I'm sure of one thing. This is not just primitive superstition, and we will treat it seriously, just as His Majesty commands. So, Zainsubani says Sulmatul and Nibani Maisa at Urshilaku Camp are the heads of the Nerevarine cult. So I'm sending you to speak with them. Tell them your story, and have them test you against the Nerevarine Prophecies. As heads of the Nerevarine cult, they can best judge whether you satisfy the prophecies. When you've spoken with them, report back to me. Here's 200 drakes for expenses. And pick up essential supplies at Fort Moonmoth. Moonmoth Fort is the Imperial Legion garrison southeast of Balmora, just outside of town. Rad Hardheart is the knight in charge. Between the Imperial Legions and Imperial cult staff, they have about a dozen service providers out there. Those were the good old days, eh? Believe it or not, I was an apprentice once too, but that was a long time ago. The package you gave me described the prophecy's conditions, and you seemed to match them. An orphan and outcast. A youth born on a certain day to uncertain parents. Standard vague prophecy stuff. I can see how it would be nice to have a Nerevarine in our pocket, just in case. But the Emperor and his advisors seem to think this...
Outlander. Why walk when you can ride?
There's something not right about you. Maybe you should go.
I don't know you. What do you want? You look like you can handle a sword. Want to join the Imperial Legion? Some words should be shared only by friends. What? All the garrisons are presently at full strength, except perhaps the Deathshed Legion at You look like you can handle. All the garrisons are presently at full strength, except perhaps the Deathshed Legion at Fort Darius in the West Gash near the village of Anises. If you're interested, you'll have to talk to General Darius there. An Ashlander religious cult called the Nerevarine cult believes prophecies of a reincarnation of the ancient Dunmer hero, Nerevar, who will come to cast down the false gods of the Tribunal Temple and drive all Outlanders from Morrowind. The cult is outlawed by the Temple and the Empire.
The most disciplined and effective military force in history, the Imperial Legions preserved the peace and rule of law in the Empire. At need, the Legion garrisons can be swiftly mobilized to protect against invasions or internal disorders, but in Vvardenfell district of Morrowind, the local forts help to ensure law and order, providing guards to supplement the local guard units of the temple and great houses Shlalu, Redaran, and Telvarni. There are 5 Legion garrisons in Vvardenfell district. The 3 town garrisons, Moonmoth Legion Fort in Balmora, Buckmoth Legion Fort in Aldrun, and Fort Pelagiad in Pelagiad, are at full complement. The Hawkmoth Legion garrisoned at Castle Ebenhart is an elite honor guard unit, and also at full complement. The frontier installation, Fort Darius in Gnisis village, is currently the only understrength garrison on Vvardenfell. Qualified citizens seeking enlistment in the Imperial Legion should apply to the commander of that garrison, General Darius. The Legion selects candidates on the basis of superior endurance, the soldierly virtue, and trustworthy personality,
when you can ride?
the citizen's virtue. For service in the Legion is the model for the duties of Imperial citizenship. Troopers are expected to demonstrate mastery of the long blade, the spear and blunt weapons. Legion troops train with shield and heavy armor, and so must be skilled at blocking and moving in heavy armor. As a trooper or knight, you must master the long blade, spear, and blunt
We
weapons.
make a special trip
You
just
must block
for you.
whatever
Same
blows you
local.
can, and take unblocked blows upon your heavy armor. Recruit must also be proficient at athletics, both to march long distances with heavy
Why
pikes
walk when
and
you
to
can
advance
ride?
and maneuver, charge and retreat on the field of battle.
Why walk when you can ride?
be the end of you. Here it comes.
Spit it out or hit the road.
You come to talk, then talk, Outlander. Do you want to offer me a gift, Outlander? Then bring me a kwama egg, for I am hungry.
You are in the wrong place, Outlander. Leave now. You are in the wrong place, Outlander. Leave now! The Urshilaku are the Ashlanders of the northern Ashlands and the West Gash. I am the wise woman of them.
How did you get in here? Leave at once, or I will kill you myself. Save your breath. You do not have many more left to spend.
Will you say you are deaf or stupid or rude? How do you explain? I have told you you are in the wrong place. I told you to leave, but you are still here. Will you say you are deaf or stupid or rude? How do you explain? I have told you you are in the wrong place. I told you to... Dagoth-Ur is the devil and the enemy. Dagoth-Ur and his beasts and servants are the source of many... This is not a matter for idle talk with strangers. Why should... In ancient days, the Deep Elves and a great host of outlanders from the west came stealing the land of the Dunmer. In that time, Nerevar was the great Khan and war leader of the House People, but he honored the ancient spirits and the tribal law, and became as one of us. So, when Nerevar pledged upon his great ring of the ancestors, one clan under moon and star, to honor the ways of the spirits and rights of the land, all the tribes joined the House People fighting a great battle at Red Mountain. Though many Dunmer, tribesmen, and housemen died at Red Mountain, the Dwemer were defeated, and their evil magics destroyed, and the Outlanders driven from the land. But after this great victory, the power-hungry Khans of the great houses slew Nerevar in secret, set themselves up as gods, and forgot Nerevar's promises to the tribes. But Nerevar will come again and cast down the false gods, and by the power of his ring will make good his promises, honor the spirits, and drive the outsiders from the land. Do you want to offer me a gift? Good. I am not proud. I like gold. This is the custom you Outlanders call a bribe, yes? Is this supposed to be a gift? If so, it does not please me. Will you say you are deaf, or stupid, or rude? How do you explain? I have told you, you are in the wrong place. Very well, I'll see what can be done. Do you want to offer me a gift? Good. I am not proud. I like gold. This is the custom you Outlanders call a bribe, yes? This is Urshilaku Camp, Outlander.
I'm waiting.
I will hear your talk, Outlander. I have not heard of this, so go and find some other who has. I know. I think so too. But it's good of you to say so. You are an Outlander, and you wish to talk of the Nerevarine Prophecies. You are polite and well-mannered for an Outlander, and I do not think you mean to give offense. But why should you care about the Nerevarine Prophecies? I do not believe what I'm hearing. You think you are the Nerevarine, and you wish to speak to Sul-Matul and Nibani Maisa. You do not look like the Nerevarine, but you do not speak like a fool or a madman. This is a puzzle. I tell you, go speak with Zabamund in his yurt. He is a Gulakan, Sul-Matul's champion, and he will decide what is right. If Zabamund gives you permission, then you may enter the Ashkhan's yurt and speak with Sul-Matul. We Ashlanders have a prophecy that one day a reincarnation of the legendary hero Nerevar will unite the Dunmer against the Outlander invaders, driving them from our land and restoring the ancient faith and honor of the dark elven peoples as taught us by the prophet Vela. You are an Outlander, so it is not proper that we should speak with you about.
Talk, Outlander. Speak with respect, and I will listen.
Talk, Outlander. Speak with respect, and I will listen. These are not simple matters. You know a great deal more than I would have thought, and some of what you say is news to me. I believe you should speak to Sul-Matul. Perhaps he will be angry with me, but I think I can bear that. Go to the Ashkhan's yurt and speak with Sul-Matul. Ask him your questions and tell him I have sent you. Go to Sul-Matul's yurt. Tell him that Zabamund has sent...
So, my champion
Zabamund has sent you to talk with me about the Nerevarine Prophecies. Then go ahead, talk. I am very curious. You think you fulfill the Nerevarine prophecies. You wish to be tested to see if you are the Nerevarine. No Outlander may join the Nerevarine cult. If you were a clan friend, an adopted member of the Ashlander tribes, then perhaps. I have an initiation rite in mind. If you pass this rite, I will adopt you as a clan friend of the Ashlanders, and then I will submit you to Nibani Maisa, our wise woman, who is skilled in oracles and mysteries, and who will test you against the prophecies. To be adopted into the tribe, you must undergo a harrowing. In a harrowing, you will be judged by the spirits and ancestors to see if you are worthy. Go to the Urshilaku burial caverns and fetch me Sulsenipul's bone-biter bow. Sulsenipul was my father, and his spirit guards his bone-mold long bow deep in the burial caverns. Return to me with this bow, and I will adopt you into the Ashlander tribes as a clan friend. The burial caverns lie to the south-southeast of the camp, a north-facing door in a little hill halfway between us and the slopes of Red Mountain. Go north from the camp to the water, then turn east. At a rock cairn on the beach, turn and head straight south until you find the door. The spirits of our ancestors guard the caverns. They will attack and will kill you if they can. Force your way past them or evade them. Get the bow and return to prove your worthiness. Red Mountain is the great mountain of fire in the center of Vvardenfell. The outer slopes are steep and rugged, and the crater is deep and filled with burning rock. Beasts and servants of the devil Dagoth live on Red Mountain. The settled people built a magical barrier called Ghost Fence to keep the evils inside. Within the Ghost Fence, rain never falls and the sun never shines. The only weather is the red and deadly ash blight. The Urshilaku are the Ashlanders of the northern Ashlands and the West Gash. I am the chief of the Urshilaku, and Nibani Maisa is our wise woman, a deep and shrewd counselor, and seer of the Nerevarine cult.
What, Outlander? Why do you disturb me? What do you want, Outlander? Keep it up if you really want to make me mad.
This is a volume of verse collected from Ashlander wise women. May I Shrink to Dust is from the Ahimusa Ashlanders of the Grazelands. May I shrink to dust in your cold, wild wastes, and may my tongue speak its last hymn to your winds. I pray for the herder that whistles to his gar at play. I pray for the hunter that stalks the white walkers. I pray for the wise one that seeks under the hill, and the wife who wishes for one last touch of her dead child's hand. I will not pray for that which I've lost when my heart springs forth from your soil like a seed, and blossoms anew beneath tomorrow's sun. 1. I sing of Elizabeth, the Queen of the Axe, who could fell a full elm with 2 hatchet hacks. She could rip apart Valenwood just for her fun. She studied under Alfadil in Tel Arun. He taught her the jabs, the strokes, and the stance to make an axe swing into an elegant dance. He taught her the barbed axes of the orcs bold, the 6-foot-long axes favoured in Winterhold, the hollow-bladed axes of the elves of the west, which whistle when they swing through flesh. With a single-headed axe, she could behead 2 men. With a double-headed axe, she could fell more than 10. Yet where she lives in legend has most to do with the man who hacked her own heart in 2. 2. Neonolus Ulwath the Mighty, who hailed from Blackrose, the only man who could best Elizabeth with axe blows. In a minute, she chopped 50 trees, he 53. She felt at once that he was the only man for she. When she professed her love, Neonolus just laughed. He said he loved more his axe handle and shaft, and if they weren't enough to slake all his desire, there was another woman named Lorinthire. Fury gripped the Queen of the Axe, the maid Elizabeth, and her thoughts turned to pondering musings of death. Mephala and Sheogorath gave her a revengeful scheme, and for weeks she worked on it in a state like a dream. In the still of the night, she kidnapped her rival and then told her choices between doom and survival. 3. Lorinthire awoke in a house in the moors, in a room lightly furnished except for 3 doors. Elizabeth explained that behind one of the doors the lass would find Elizabeth's and her love, the great Neonolas. Behind the second lived a ravenous demon, and behind the third an exit to freedom. She must choose a door, and to aid her decision, if she pondered too long, the axe would make a division. Lorinthire wept, and Elizabeth felt contrite, and opened the door to her immediate right. It led to the moors, and as she slipped through the gloom, she advised Lorinthire to likewise abandon the room. Lorinthire ignored her, and did not feel her will bend. Neonolas was largely behind the first door she opened. 4. Elizabeth had lied. There was no demon of law. The top third of Neonolas was behind the third door. Up until he was 10 years old, Owen Parnafakasis was in an elite group of the very best families of Gnisis. They went to the very best tailors, shared the same tutors, played in the same exclusive company. When his mother died and his father discovered that the money they had been living on was based on a thief's salary, he suddenly found himself on a very different kind of society, one that he had been ill-equipped to deal with. They were poor. Owen eventually learned to make a living at the only skill he seemed to be well suited for: gardening. In time, he had grown an impressive garden of willow anther, gold cannet, chokeweed, white bloatroot, and trauma shrubs. He had also grown himself into a remarkably uninteresting man. Aside from his gardening, he had little to say for himself. Unlearned, uncharismatic, unathletic, uncoordinated. And yet he yearned. Specifically, he yearned for a girl he had known before all his trouble, a sweet thing with curly locks and a joyous laugh, named Benita Gorgoth. Once, when at play, he had pushed a bully away who was trying to hurt her, and the look of appreciation she gave him was enough to make all his days since then worth their while. As he tended his garden one springtide, not very many years ago, he heard some people talking through the thick, tall trauma shrubs about the marriage of Sedura Indoril Pavflek Mamuna, one of the wealthiest and most respected nobles in Gnisis, and Seryo Benita Gorgoth. His heart fell. She had found another a mere 9 years since she had given him that look while at play. As spring turned into summer and summer into fall, Owen began to sell his herbs, including some to Kina Yakin Bael, a prominent healer in town. He'd been a tutor to both Benita and Owen and told the young man that the lady's husband was not very well. Owen held back his happiness and continued on his errands. Not long afterwards, Sedura Indoril Pavflek Mamuna fell ill and died, despite all the skills of the great healers, including Yakin Bael. When Owen came to deliver the herbs that day, he said, "If you are still in communication with Benita, please give her my sympathies." "Ciao," said Yakin. "If I could get a word in with all her counselors. They are trying to find her a new husband, and she has made it clear that she will only marry the strongest man in Morrowind." "Who is that?" asked Owen. "Horath the Strong," replied Yakin. "It is said that he can lift a wagon with but his forefinger and thumb." "You can teach me a spell that will fortify my own strength," said Owen. "I beg you to teach it to me now." "Very well," replied Yakin. "But in return, I want your next season's worth of trauma root, all to myself." Owen agreed, and Yakin taught him the spell to fortify his strength. It took him some time to master it, visualizing magicka streaming through his body, pumping through the very fibers of his muscles for a time, giving him strength far beyond the puny power nature had intended. When Owen met Horath on the street of Gnisis, he cast the spell and challenged him to a duel of strength. "I am Horath the Strong," said Horath the Strong, predictably. "Witness as I lift this wagon with but my thumb and forefinger." And he did so. "I am Nimlom the Mighty," said Owen, taking some artistic liberty. "Witness as I lift the stable that houses your wagon with but my forefinger." And he too did so. The word went out quickly throughout Morrowind. The strongest man alive was in the province. Owen went to visit his friend, Yakin Bael. Her lady Benita has heard of the strength of Nimlom the Mighty and has said that she was mistaken. She was not looking for a man of strength to marry, but a man of intelligence, a great scholar, the greatest in all Morrowind. "Who is that?" asked Owen. "Kina Warfell Thomasin," replied Yakin. "It is said that he can best any man or woman in a battle of wits." "You can teach me a spell that will fortify my own intelligence," said Owen. "I beg you to teach it to me now." "Very well," replied Yakin. "But in return I want your next season's worth of white bloatroot, all to myself." Owen agreed, and for the next couple of weeks Yakin taught him the spell and trained him in its use. He taught him how to entrench his mind for the sudden assault of awareness and aptitude that would assail it, how to give himself to the sudden thoughts and theorems that would invade his consciousness. When he met Warfell Thomasin in the Mages Guild of Gnisis, he cast his spell and gave the challenge. I am Kena Warfell Thomasin, and I can prove that Akatosh, Nirn, and Oblivion are one, said Warfell, writing out the mathematical formula that showed it was so. I am Kena Zombel Mokafa, and I can prove that you do not exist, said Owen. He wrote out the mathematical formula which proved correct, and Kena Warfell Thomasin vaporized on the spot. The word went out quickly throughout Morrowind. The most intelligent man alive was in the province. Owen went to visit his friend, Yakin Bael. Her Lady Benita has heard of the intelligence of Kena Zombel Mokafa and has said that she was mistaken. She was not looking for a man of intelligence to marry, but a man of endurance, a rock, the greatest in all Morrowind. Who is that? Asked Owen. I would say Master Kombova, said Yakin. They say he can stand in blue flames for 20 minutes. You can teach me a spell that will fortify my own endurance, said Owen. I beg you to teach it to me now. Very well, replied Yakin, but in return, I want your next season's worth of chokeweed all to myself. Owen agreed, and for the next several weeks, he learned the spell to make his endurance like that of the oldest stone. He learned how to shrug off the effects of frost, poison, fire, and charges of lightning, pulling the pain into a reservoir of magicka and expelling it. The lesson learned, he came across Master Kombova at the Madak trade house. My name is Master Kombova, said the fellow, nudging the witch next to him. Kena Leles, cast a ball of blue flame for me. And he sat in the inferno of flame for 20 minutes before he left. Master Kombova, my name is Master Vomf, said Owen. Kena Leles, cast a ball of blue flames for me. Owen sat in the inferno of blue fire for very nearly an hour before he left. The word went out quickly throughout Morrowind. The toughest man alive was in the province. Owen went to visit his friend, Yakin Bael. Her Lady Benita has heard of the endurance of Master Vomf, he said, not entirely approving of Owen's latest sobriquet, and has said that she was mistaken. She was not looking for a man of endurance to marry, but a man of agility, a nimble acrobat, the greatest in all Morrowind. Who is that? Asked Owen. I would say Funkrazo Prief, said Yakin. They say he is the greatest shield blocker and pickpocket in Morrowind. You can teach me a spell that will fortify my own agility, said Owen. I beg you to teach it to me now. Very well, replied Yakin, but in return, I want your next season's worth of gold cannet, all to myself. Owen agreed, and Yakin taught him the spell that would fire his impulses with magicka. Over several weeks, he learned how to supplant his own natural energy with the spells, how to view the world at the slower pace a man with advanced agility sees. In time, Owen came upon Funkrazo in a field outside the city, doing his regular exercises. Owen cast his spell and approached the acrobat. Ah, behold the power of the amazing Funkrazo Prief, said the aforementioned, and prompted his sparring partner to attack him with his sword. He blocked the blows effortlessly with a shield for 10 minutes, and then revealed afterwards that he had picket-pocketed the young man's purse. Very impressive, Sir Prief. Now behold the power of the remarkable Gazoof Mao, said Owen, and prompted Prief's sparring partner to attack him with his sword. After 20 minutes of blocking the man's blows with his shield, he revealed that he had pickpocketed Funkrazo Prief's purse. The word went out quickly throughout Morrowind. The most agile man alive was in the province. Owen went to visit his friend, Yakin Bael. The door was closed this time, and he heard voices within. Have you heard about the remarkable Gazoof Mao? Yakin Bael was asking. He sounds like a very promising suitor. The truth is, Kena, that I have no more interest in him than I had in Nimlon the Mighty, Kena Zombel Mokafa, or Master Vomf, replied a feminine voice that seemed familiar to Owen. I will have to invent a new test for suitors, while I search for my true love. You don't wish to marry the strongest, most intelligent, toughest, most agile suitors? Asked the old healer. No, not at all, said the woman. I had to make some kind of test to rebuff the advances of so many men interested in my money and the money of my late husband. The truth is that I've never forgotten the young boy who was so kind to me when I was a little girl, and so brave fighting off the bullies. His name was Owen Parnafakasi. Owen burst into the room and was reunited with Benita. They were married at once. A week later, he returned to Yakin Bail and learned how to fortify his personality in exchange for next season's worth of willow anther. Then they lived happily ever after.